So in the last tournament, we knew, since we fell a little short of our goal, that there were some things we needed to work on. And I think the biggest thing for us is that we're trying to utilize Bean a little bit more. And going into this GCD, we knew he didn't have the biggest role, but he had a very important role to get us through very specific matchups, and that's exactly what he did. He came in for the jungle. We used Demo DH. He was utilized in the offline games with the Pharaoh Mage, and even though he wasn't played too much, it was really important for us to make sure that we knew the matchups that we needed him for. That way there's like no animosity in between the teammates where, we may not be doing well and he wants to get pulled in. We really understood like where we all stood in terms of the classes that we played and the matchups that were going to be used. So like we weren't stepping on each other's toes for any matchups.
It felt good to be utilized sometimes. Obviously it sucks not having a lot of comps to play, and or not knowing what comps you can really play, and it can get annoying sometimes. But so it felt good to play a few games, and hopefully we'll find more comps going forward. And yeah.
So our first match in the April GCD against Sneaky Snakes, the jungle, and it was actually kind of a hard matchup, which we weren't expecting, but it went into dampening, and we were able to win in dampening.
We had actually a decent amount of practice versus them too, and we fought like a bunch of two different jungles, I think. And the games never actually went to dampening. It was never actually as hard for some reason. And I don't know if that's just like them playing safer in the tournament setting or...
I think it was human.
Was it? Oh, it was
human.
They were
human. Yeah.
Holy moly. Nerf human.
Just the faction change made it so much more difficult.
You just can't ever stun them.
We set up with stuns. So like
I had to use like melee routes to get setups and stuff. It's actually awkward.
We set up with stuns, so it's a lot more awkward like trying to get troops out of stuns because they have two trinkets. Or they have relentless and a human trinket, which is really annoying.
So going into the second game, we ended up winning the first pick, and we expected the match to go a lot easier than it was. I think dampening came down pretty deep, and we never played Pharaoh Mage in dampening against jungle, so we were like, you know what? Even if we have to play Pharaoh Mage again, we are still up the first game. We can counter pick them or just try and queue a safer comp. And they ended up picking the Dalaran map. That way the Mage couldn't kite as much, so we decided to pick Demo DH, Resto Druid, which at the time we knew did really well unless they trained the Resto Druid. And we expected them to train the Resto Druid on Dalaran, but they never ended up going on Cdew. I think that just gave us a huge advantage in that matchup, and letting me free cast and letting Cdew free cast as well just put them on a lot of
just go crazy.
And then Bean do his thing.
Yeah, that's whatever.
But no, I mean I think actually Demo DH was favored in that matchup if you actually did not train the Resto Druid, which I think was their huge mistake. And then going into the game after that, they just decided to try Red Hunter Priest, and Demo DH just does really well versus Red Hunter Priest, especially if you kite properly and try and go for the big one shots on the Red Hunter.
Yeah, just every 2 minutes you get bubble with Chaos Blades and stuff, just guaranteed almost. I think on the third map when they switched to Red Hunter Priest, I think it was kind of that situation where they don't actually know what to do because they didn't feel like they could beat it with jungle because obviously they lost, and they didn't really have another comp or didn't really know what comp they would like to run into it. So it was kind of just like that YOLO, let's see if we'll do good against these guys specifically, even though we know we kind of lose that matchup probably.
Yeah, I think it was probably, I don't want to say it was a good decision for them to switch, but I think it wasn't a bad decision. A lot of the times when you're in a tournament and you lose a specific matchup, if you end up picking the same matchup again, it could like inevitably be your downfall. We actually have done that a few times, and it doesn't really ever work out in our favor. And normally you don't ever really see it work out in the team's favor if they pick the same matchup after losing. I know there's some things that you can do where, maybe you think it's a bad map, or maybe you could switch up a few talent choices, but all around, like unless you're making like some really serious mistakes, if you're gonna continue to pick the same comp after losing, if you're down 0-1 and then you pick it again, you're down 0-2, you got to put yourself in a situation where if you don't reverse sweep that, you're gonna lose the series. So it's a tough spot to be in. I kind of think that we were advantaged with the matchup in general. So maybe they were just kind of hoping they could throw us a curveball, and maybe we didn't practice as much for Ret Hunter as we did as for jungle.
So our next series was against Method Awaken, which was Smex's new team, consisting of Absurge, Goob, and Viable. It was actually a weird matchup when we first woke up. We didn't actually know what they were going to play. We knew that they got practice versus Mage Lock Druid, which was pretty much a brand new comp that we had brought to the scene. And and they got practice against okay players. We weren't scared that they got practice, but at the same time we didn't know like what matchup they played against it and which one what favored them. And we got practice honestly against a lot of their comps as well, and I think we ended up getting better practice. But yeah, going into the first series, we decided just to blind pick Mage Log Druid. We just gave it a shot. We figured it was the best matchup versus everything that they had, and we were confident in beating them. And when we first saw TSG, honestly, I thought that was probably the easiest comp that they could have thrown at us because it's probably because we practiced against it so much, but we just knew exactly how to win, just play the long game, just survive, and eventually the Druid would run out of mana or the Deputy would be too high. You can heal through it. And obviously having a viable on an alt class, I feel like it made it a lot safer for us to play and just play our style of game on the first game on Nagran Arena.
So after we won the first game, and then we found out the map was Tol'Ran, and whenever we entered the room, we saw it was Double Shaman, and we actually didn't get any practice for Double Shaman. And for me, I was actually scared of Double Shaman the most because of the fact that they had double decurse, or actually triple decurse. And so I thought that would just like kill our pressure completely because Affliction Lock is a big part of our pressure. And we didn't really know what to do mid-game, so we were just kind of dampening for a while, and then eventually we found out that we needed to play on top of them and try and just out-pressure them. And that's how we eventually won the game.
It's pretty scary watching that game. Like, people would go from 100 to 20 instantly.
I think going back to that to the Double Shaman, I feel like I personally didn't play my best just because of the triple decurse, but I don't think that team took full advantage of the fact that they had triple decurse. I mean, obviously they knew that's the reason why they picked it was the triple decurse, but when we went back and we looked at recount, we looked at the logs and stuff, they didn't spam decurse as much as they should have. And I think when you're under a lot of pressure, especially in deep dampening, decursing yourself is not something that always comes to mind on every 8 seconds or wherever the Quinn on decurse is. And I think that's where they lost most of their pressure and where we gained our pressure. Because when you're at 20-30%, you're worried about healing, stopping CC, stopping damage, but you're not really spamming decurse, which is the reason why they brought out that comp. And I think that was a huge mistake on their part.
The final game was their last pick, which was Turbo. And we knew Turbo was a really scary comp because they don't have that much uptime versus the Frost Mage, but when they do connect, it's for a lot of damage. And it was actually really scary pretty early on in that match. And I think a lot of it has to do with how I play the game. We actually got a lot of practice specifically versus Turbo and the TSG that they ran in the first game. And versus TSG, my main goal was to kind of box the Druid out and try and get as much CC on him as possible. They don't really have too many ways to stop me. They don't have that much pressure, so me playing aggressive is actually really good to get the healer and CC. But versus the Turbo on the smaller map like Dalaran as opposed to that big map Nagrand, Sam doesn't have as much room to kite, so I was spending a lot of time trying to get CC on Druid and opportunities where it wasn't really going to cause that much pressure. And they ended up getting both blocks really, really early on. And there was a situation where they had lust up and we had no blocks, and it was kind of their all-in attempt, and we had to make sure that we did everything right. So we recognized that we were in a situation where we were capable of losing, and we just held everything defensively. And when they went, we had everything to counteract it. And eventually, I think dampening just got too high. The Druid probably ran him, and it was our kill. But yeah, we just we stayed calm and we made sure that we understood what we needed to do to turn that game around, because I feel like early on they were actually winning, but as soon as we recognized what was going on and stuff, we were able to stop them from creating any more pressure.
Yeah, the final game was scary. I think when you're in the game, like I said in the previous matchup, I think where they made the mistake of not decursing as much, and going to the third game, I think once we I pretty much was all right, stop everything here. Let's just change how we play. We're gonna start doing this now. We're gonna start doing this now, and we started recovering. We eventually got our ice block back up. We were safe. We knew exactly how to play the matchup, and as soon as we started doing that, it was our game. And it pretty much felt like they couldn't do anything because we had so much practice versus that, and they didn't have much practice versus our comp. So once we started controlling them a lot more, knowing who to attack, stopping the drinks, keeping up the pressure. There was actually a window opportunity which we took because, I don't think dampening really went that high on Dalaran, and the Druid still had a lot of mana, but the thing was when he went for the drink on Dalaran, that wasn't we got our kill opportunity, because coming out of the drink, I was able to force Trinket, and we still had Icy Veins and still had a lot of damage. So to go after that, that's how we actually got the kill, because we were able to get the CC on the Druid without the Trinket after he had drank beforehand, and then we secured the kill with Icy Veins and a few clones and Bash and all that stuff onto the Shaman. But But I'll just put it out there. It felt damn good to win that matchup. It felt damn good to win that series. Yeah, that's all I would say.
Going into the final matchup versus, I believe their name was Fragment Apparel, which is Mez, Maldiva, and Colo, the three-man roster that has been doing really well in these tournaments so far. I can't really say we were nervous or anything. We actually played them in the offline series, and they beat us in the tournament prior. So obviously we had to go back to the drawing boards and kind of figure out what comp was going to be able to take them out. So when we came up with MLD, we didn't actually get specific practice versus the comps that we play, but just in theory, we kind of thought with the Frost Mage, Mez wouldn't be able to move around as much. We'd be able to kind of rot down the demo pets, and it worked great. So we actually beat them in the offline series to get to the final 8. So I think it was pretty obvious they knew what we were going to play. They knew what to expect. So that's kind of why you saw some stranger comps out of them, like the Affliction instead of the demo opening up with that. They knew exactly what we were going to play. I can't really say we were nervous. They gave us a really good fight. It was a 3-1 series, and I think they were the only team to take a game off of us that day. If I remember correctly, I think it was a 3-0, 3-0 into a 3-1. But we really like them as players. They're good practice partners for us. So it kind of just felt like a very stress-free environment. If you're going to lose a tournament, losing to your friends never really feels that bad. So we're always kind of rooting for them, and we like them a lot as players, and they're actually on method now, which I think is awesome because they work really hard and stuff. But it was for us, it was just kind of textbook play. The one game that we lost, we thought about, are we going to win on a different map? Do we want to switch comps or anything? But I think it just happened to be the small map. We're stacked up a lot. Mez is able to get out a lot of damage. And yeah, knowing that he was playing Affliction, we decided just to take the counter comp with the Warrior. And it was a little scary because I haven't actually played Pally in a while. And I'm not the greatest Paladin. And, my team likes to give me a lot of grief when I play Paladin. And, so I was a little nervous going into that one. We did not practice that matchup. We didn't practice me on Paladin at all. We haven't been laddering. So going into that one, my main goal was just don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. They do really well when they play with other Paladins, so I felt like I had to kind of fill those shoes. So I think our matchup did really, really well. We lost to the Demo in the previous tournament, but with him being UA, he has a lot less survivability, and it was on a much smaller map, so we knew we'd get the kill. And although it was pretty scary, ultimately the counter cop worked, and from there we just kind of snowballed it.
After we won the GCD, it felt really good, obviously, because that was the first tournament we won as a team together, and we had the second Arena Cup coming up, and we had a little bit of downtime, and so we took a little bit of a break, I would say, and we didn't practice as much as we probably should have. We knew people were going to prepare for MLD since we just beat everyone as MLD, so we were looking for other comps we could play, and we were just practicing our all comps pretty much, and we weren't playing a lot of our main comps. I think that was a big problem for us because we didn't play much Warrior Mage, right? And I think that was a big problem.
For the second cup, I mean, we knew what comps we had, and we knew we had done well as these comps, and making it to the top 8, which was on the weekend, which was on a Sunday, I believe. We actually had the intention of playing into a jungle cleave, because there were 3 different jungles during that weekend. And I think it was our own mistake that we actually spent probably 3 days of practice session trying to beat jungle cleave. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because if we had gone jungle, it would have been good. But I think that we need to use better use of our practice time and try and play all of our comps and not just versus a specific matchup. We know the matchups now that we need to play into jungle cleave, but it left us really rusty on our other comps, on our main comps, which I would say would be Warrior Mage or Mage Lock. It definitely showed on the first game versus Temple Storm. I think we heard that they had gone practice versus a different Warrior Mage, and we had not practiced versus Rogue Mage in a long time, just because we thought the matchup was in our favor, and I still think it is, but we just didn't practice too well versus any Rogue Mage, and it kind of showed that tournament day. One, we probably just didn't play as well, and 2, I think when you don't play a match for a long time, you forget about the small things that makes you win a certain matchup, whether it could be the smallest thing ever, and I think we kind of forgot about that, and that was our own fault in terms of practice, I think.
After making top 8 in the NA Cup number 2, I wouldn't really say we were overconfident or anything, because the road that we had to get there was actually fairly easy. We had really good matchups. We fought a harder team that was actually missing their healer, so I would almost say it was a free ride. And that was kind of sitting in the back of my mind. We didn't really have super difficult challenges to get there, and I kind of know that we haven't been playing that much. So I was really confident actually fighting Tempo Storm, but after playing them, they knocked me out of my comfort zone really quickly. They were attacking me a lot the first game, and immediately after that, instead of playing the Moonkin Affinity, which is super important versus Mage Rogue, I was playing the Bear Form Affinity after dying that first game, just because like lack of confidence in myself, and I just didn't really play the matchup. I didn't play the matchup well. I didn't do what we needed to do to win, just with lack of experience. I wasn't nearly as prepared as I thought I was, and we were talking about putting Bean in, but when we're in a situation like that, so we played the first game, we lost, and we're like, okay, let's go into the second game, and we could get this done. You play the second game, we lose. Now we're in a situation where even if we play Bean, we can get one game back potentially, but we have to immediately swap comps again because they can counter whatever we throw at them with Bean most likely. You know what I mean? So we kind of had to put ourselves in a situation where we need to figure out this matchup. We beat them 3-0 in the previous tournament. It's possible for us to win 3 games again. So we went into the third matchup. We played a very slow-paced game, one that matches I don't really want to say the play style, more or less the experience of our WMD. We're not super good at being aggressive. We're not super good at getting the cross CC. It's something that we're working on specifically. And we ended up taking a game, and they kind of threw us the curveball of assassination. And we've never played that matchup before. We weren't sure what to expect. We weren't sure how to spec and what was going to be our kill target and stuff. And we just got handled. And I think after losing that one specific game versus assassination, we could play it 100 times better. But they threw us the curveball, and we couldn't respond. So they ended up taking the series from us.
Going into our second series versus Your Name Here, we knew we had an idea what they were going to play, and we knew what we wanted to play because we had wargamed them a lot previously, and we played MLD, and we beat all of their comps as MLD. And they played the most random comp ever. The first game, which was Prop Paladin, LA Shaman, Holy Priest, I think it was. And we didn't really know what to do, but we knew we couldn't kill before dampening because they had a Prop Paladin. So we kind of just sat behind the pillar a lot, and we tried a few different things, and then we eventually just killed something in dampening. I forget who we killed, but it was just so high dampening to where you just had a lot of bursts, and we were able to kill them. And then the second game, they played with the Shaman Healer. I forget what else they played, but
They played double Shaman Beastcleave.
They played double Shaman Beastcleave, yeah. We knew that would also be a dampener because we're just playing MLD, but we knew that we would rest of Shamans pretty easily as MLD. And so we just took it to dampening, and then the Shaman eventually went and then we just killed like that. And then after we were 2-0 up, they played Holy Pally Beastcleave instead of Shaman, which I thought would be a lot harder. The Paladin played Melee Wings, and Melee Wings is really good to heal against spread pressure. And I think we were attacking Pally a lot that game, and I think Shaman would have been a better target to attack. And eventually they were just able to kill Snutz because we weren't able to get a kill fast enough, I guess, because of the Melee Wings healing. As to where the Shaman would just and we'd be able to kill, but the Paladin didn't really go and he'd be able to heal through the damage pretty easily, I would say. And so we lost that game.
After losing the third game on Tiger's Peak, MLD versus the Holy Pally Beastcleave, that's actually a matchup I thought we should win. And I was vaguely discussing, well, if we pick Tolvaron, do they have a chance if we just pick the same comp? But the teammates kind of thought, though, even though Tolvaron's a very big map, they're going to just kind of play on top of us, and Snutz wouldn't really be able to line of sight or kite that well, and he was actually kiting really well in Tiger's Peak. So we kind of decided maybe it's not a matchup that we wanted to play, and they suggested Warrior Mage Druid. And from what I understand, I feel like Warrior Mage Druid gets annihilated from Beastcleave, but they were really confident. They thought we should win that matchup, so I don't want to kind of drag them down with negativity, saying I don't think we can. And so I kind of went along with it, but in the back of my head, I was thinking the entire time, if we lose this, we still have our counter pick, and I know exactly what we want to pick if we do lose this. And we briefly talked about how Prawn Hand should destroy it, and Bean kind of wanted to be brought in, so me and him were on one side of the fence, and Snutz and Sam were on the other side of the fence. So we went into the Warrior Mage Druid matchup, and Sam kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. We just weren't really practicing our Warrior Mage Druid. It was a comp that we haven't really mastered yet. But we played it decently well, and we didn't put too much time into it since the cups where we did pretty well with it. So I think a lot of it kind of falls onto my hands, where I'm not super comfortable with getting the Mage Druid CC that people are so used to hearing about. Just constantly rotating CC. So there's always at least one person in the game that can actually move. So after losing that matchup, we decided to bring the Prawn Enhance, and we never practiced that specific matchup, but on Dalaran, at BlizzCon, we played Prot Enhanced Holy Pally into Holy Pally Beastcleave, which was exactly what we were fighting against, and we won versus Botar's team at BlizzCon. So that was kind of the guidelines that we were following.
Still the same thing.
Yeah, it's got
Same
to still be very similar of a matchup. So I decided to log on the Disc Priest instead because I feel like it's a little more durable than the Holy Pally. You have the MD, you have the second Purge. We were able to get the buff off. So we knew going into that we still had the counter pick. And when we bring in Bean, it's normally pretty desperate because everyone knows that guy. That guy's a little washed up.
When my teammates are being bad, I have to come in and save the day. I'm basically the director of the whole thing. I'm like their team. They're in-game manager, you know what I mean? So it's like I keep them calm when they're losing. I'm like, bring me in, you'll win.
We gave him that title so he feels important, so he doesn't actually ask to play. But now we brought him in, and we knew what we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to train Pally, and that's basically what happened. I think that was a good pick. We probably should have picked it on the fourth map in case if we did randomly lose to that comp, we get a little bit of experience with it. But overall, it worked out, and you just got to keep your head. Even though we were up 2-0, they ended up tying it up, and closing the third game was really important for us, or excuse me, the fifth game for the third win.
So the last series we had versus Splice, we didn't really know what they would run because they're kind of like those. They have those comps that no one really has, like Double Monk and just weird stuff. So we didn't really know what they were gonna run, but we figured our best chance would be MLD because we figured they'd run like Punch Monk something or Hunter Demon Hunter, like stuff that we've seen actually. And they pulled out this Arcane Mage Hunter, and we had Frost MLD, so having the Hunter and the Arcane Mage are just super far away at all times. They're never stacked. It's literally they don't care about being slowed. They're just range. Like it's literally just a counter to Frost Mage. Really, like we just couldn't really do anything. You couldn't stack orbs. Like you couldn't get good damage off. In turn, not being able to the Druid and shit like that. So like playing that series, it was pretty unexpected what we queued into, and it literally did its job. It countered us pretty hard versus the Frost.
Overall, in Cup number 2, I think we're pretty happy with our performance considering we're only a 3.5-man roster since Bean doesn't really pull his weight. I think we're okay with this.
I weigh more than you, by the way.
Overall, with the Cup number 2, I think we're happy with where we placed, but I think we're a little unhappy with how we got there. I think 4th was probably a little generous for how well we played, truthfully. I think we need a lot of work on some of our main comps, and we've already been working pretty hard, and I think we've already seen a lot of progress with the compositions that we needed to work on. So we just gotta stay focused. We gotta stay level-headed and never really get ahead of ourselves. I think that Tempo Storm series, we were all maybe a little too comfortable and confident, and they kind of put us in our place. So getting points in every single cup, I think, is definitely going to be guaranteed a free pass to regionals. So as long as we're getting points in all these cups, I think it should be a sure sign that we're going to make it there. So we gotta make sure that we're continuing to practice as much as possible and moving forward with these tournaments.
I think overall as a team, I think we're in an okay spot. Definitely not where we want to be just yet. We have a lot of problems where we're trying to figure out what. I think our biggest issue right now is what comps can we play, what comps can we actually put the time into, definitely our practice has been a little bit difficult recently. But in terms of the points and the standings, I personally don't want to be a team that's squeezes by and gets to regionals. I want to be the top 2, if not the first team with the most points going to regionals and having that top seed and just being the big dog going into it, and not a 12th place team skimming by just because you participated in tournaments. I want to be on the top, and there's still plenty of cups to play. There's still plenty of GCDs to play. I think I'm going to try and play in all of them, but for the most part, we know what we need to work on, and it's just going to take some time. And I think right now for a lot of tournaments, it comes down to, obviously, if Blizzard decides to change this one day, well, this class is now no longer viable, so we got to learn this. I don't think there'll be many changes right now until 7.2.5, but the changes that they did make kind of screwed up a lot of our. The demo lock change really just screwed up a lot of our comps, because that's one of our main classes that we did use, and it worked well with so many classes that we practiced with. Sam picking up the Shaman, Bean trying DK, Demon Hunter, and now it's just kind of those comps just are no longer a thing. It's not no longer a thing, but not a super powerhouse comp. So putting us in an awkward situation where we're gonna get better at certain comps and trying out more comps.